Welcome to this episode of The Compressor Guru. Today, in our continuing work on the IR2545 air compressor, we are doing the reassembly of the pistons and rings on the low pressure side and installing the cylinders and heads on the machine. By the end of this episode, our compressor will be fully reassembled with the exception of the wheel and lines, which will be done in our next episode. And now, here's the Compressor Guru.
I'm not a big fan of gluing gaskets on. Not so much to make them not leak, but when you go back together and you have to tear, and later when you work on it again, if you work on it again, you may have an issue tearing them apart. I don't like silicone sealants, especially on pressure lube machines, because if you get too much and that comes loose and goes through your oil pump and out to a journal, you can starve a journal with a piece of stray RTV sealant. So I just took a very light little bit of grease, put it on the bottom side of that, and we're ready to go on. With larger V-type compressors, like if you go to thecompressorguru.com, on the top of the home page, you're going to see two Quincy 5120 compressors. And I wasn't looking to be on camera. You're going to see two 5120 compressors. When I rebuild those, we actually have to do this next step using an engine crane. And in order to line everything up, we take and we block the compressor like this with 2x4s or 4x4s, and the same on this side, so that it sets with this being flat. Now, so if you're working by yourself and you can't quite get this done, which we're going to find out if I can get this done, I might have to do this way, because my camera wife is running the camera. So that's one way to do it, was with a hoist, an engine hoist, an overhead crane, to put an eye bolt in your cylinder and drop it down on. Now, so what I'm going to do now is we're correctly indexed. We have our yellow mark right here. We have our dipstick, or our dipper, or splash dipper going down. We have our gasket on. Bud, not the guru, has made that mistake more than he wants to admit, that he has done this and not put that gasket on and had to tear it off and go, wait, I'm done with this machine and I got an extra gasket. Oh no, can't not skip this gasket. So we're going to put a little bit of oil on that bearing. And the wife wonders why I smell like oil when I come home. Now she knows. We slip that on. We push that down, and these aren't the right bolts, but these are bolts that will fit the hole. We'll get the right bolts and put everything together here in a minute. These are actually head bolts. They're a whisker longer. And the cylinder's installed and properly indexed. Let me get the 4 rate bolts. We'll tighten these up, and then we'll do the low pressure side. that bolt, notice we have the copper washers. This aftermarket kit did not come with the copper washers. There are some advantages to your OEM kit. These copper washers can be reused many times, but the OEM kit will give you the correct washer or new washers, and the OEM kit also gives you new head bolts. And we do not have new head bolts. We will be reusing our old head bolts, and I'm not one bit worried about it.
The way I wanted to. Decided to have my cake and then eat it too. I walked down a path, but a cross stood in my way.
I mentioned before about how incredibly delicate and susceptible to oil that the gaskets are in the head, the graphite gaskets, and they have a proper name, and I can't think what it is. But we want to wipe that oil out of there because we don't want to turn this over after we're all assembled and push oil onto that gasket. So we are drying that cylinder, but those rings have been lubed. So we're going to spin this around. Do you want me to put the head on now?
Why not? It's already here.
She's not just the camera girl, she's the producer and director now. I don't know what she produces, but stop now, bud. You're only going to get in trouble. See the little mark I put for the index? And everything is lined up perfectly. I got to get the O-ring. This does not use a head gasket. This is a machine fit, and there's a orange O-ring. You want to hand me the small one? There's an orange O-ring right there that we very easily, simply and safely set right in there, and that's ready to go together. That's the only head gasket there is. If you don't like it, call Ingersoll and complain to the engineers. This is not a problem spot on these machines. And if you have half-inch studs for stud guide to guide it down on, fantastic. Now, because I'm paranoid, and I say paranoid people live longer, I'm going to pull it up on the studs and take a look in there. That O-ring is in place, even though I moved the head a little bit when I was putting it on. And I'm going to run that down. Okay, something I didn't mention when we did the high pressure piston. I'm not putting this in the vise and making it so tight that we put any stress on the rod, the bushing, or the piston. We don't want to do any damage here. I put that on, put the rag in there to keep it clean and so we don't mar anything. But besides that, we don't tighten this up super tight. We don't even tighten it up. It's just, I can't even work it out of there. But it's just there to hold it in place while I set rings. No instructions again. That's okay. We know what we're doing. This is identical to the high pressure piston. We have our ring expander, and that's how that should butt up. And you want to make sure it butts up and doesn't overlap. Oh, these won't over. Oh, these have a nice little plastic piece on them. You can't accidentally overlap them. Well, I suppose you could, but you'd really have to be a screw up to do that. Oops. Anyway, that's the way it'll end up. We'll have that directly over the pin boss that's towards my big fat belly. And I actually started a diet yesterday. If it goes well, we may be doing diet video instead of mechanic videos. And it's a common sense diet. It's not one of these fad diets. Okay, once again, even though I did it before, make sure these are not dish strings. They are not. They are flat. I wish I had a dish string here to show you how they stand up when you push on one side correctly. We're going to go about 9 o'clock. Slip that in there. As I go and cover the end of the expander, it stayed right in place. Do the next one. Put it. Oh, that was at 3 o'clock or 2:35, I think it was actually. This one's going to be at 9. And it just slipped right on there. Beautiful. Now we have our next rings. And we're going to assemble this one the same way. Yes, I just put my dirty finger in the mouth because I want to see if she can get close enough to show that pip. There's a pip on all these rings. Unless otherwise instructed, always put your pips up. Can you see it or not? I'm getting
You'll see.
Okay, this is a ring you will need the larger ring pliers on. And this is the ring that has the slight edge. We put this ring in the number 2 position on the high pressure. We're just going to match it right here. So we're going to pull it open. These are cast iron rings. They will break. So be very careful and pop right in. And yes, the Guru has broken them before. I'm going to put that one at about 4 o'clock because of where the oil ring opens out. I'm going to put that about 4. And there's the pip on this one. A high pressure ring does not have the tabs that overlap. It does have the inside bevel at the top. And we're going to put it on. And we're going to spin it around to about 10 o'clock. There we go. And that's around 10 o'clock. That's at 4:30. Let's back it up to 4. And those rings are on. It is that easy, that simple. Let's go back to the forklift where everything's setting. Notice how there's no pressure there. I did index this already. Looking for our index marks. Our index mark is right here. So when this goes on, it'll be like that. And I already put some oil over top of the rod bearing in the shaft. Let me get just right there and right there. I didn't put that on the camera wife's nose. I have to sleep sometimes, so I figured it was better not to. In my younger days, my more foolish days, I would have done something like that. But yeah. Okay. Just like before, we set the gasket right there. I'm grabbing both head bolts and cylinder bolts. I'm going to, because the head bolts are a little longer than the cylinder bolts, just so I can get things lined up and slid down, I will start with these and then replace them with the cylinder bolts that belong there. Okay, we're going to take, and since I already have the gasket there, we're going to do this out of camera sight because I don't want to get oil where I'm standing. And we've looped the rings, This cylinder, like the other one, has a machined bevel. It's not as pronounced as the high pressure side. And we want to keep in mind that that dipper needs to go down. If we put it in this way, it'll make one revolution, bust that off. So we need to make sure the dipper is down. We are indexed correctly, so we come right here and start working our rings down in. On the bigger the piston, the more you may have to get a screwdriver and push in on the rings to get them started down in the bevel. On the 350 Quincy's, on the 5120s, you can actually, a stubborn one can give you quite the day. And there we go. We're loaded. I don't drink anymore, but we're loaded. Sorry. Okay, so we are indexed. Our rings are in. I usually don't push my piston in, but where the crank bearing, or where the rod bearing is down there, and we slide her on. That's about as far as we're going to go. And honey, where are my two longer bolts?
Wait, aren't those the longer bolts right there?
No, those are just shorter bolts.
Under your rag.
Okay. We've got our two longer bolts. One started there. And this is why we use the longer bolt, so we don't have to get right down there against the gasket and push the gasket around. Like I'm doing.
There was no way around it, so I'm giving my life away. I got a bad motor scooter, and God set me up with guitars and amps and all that extra blues stuff.
Wipe our excess oil out of there. Our rings are oiled. Cylinder wall's basically oiled. And I will get
We're saving you time.
the camera wife already had it. I knew where it was, and she's ahead of me.
We needed that O-ring.
Yes, we did. Let me grab the low pressure head. So the threaded side is on this side, but that's after we bolt the mechanism to hold the unloader assembly. The gasket is in place. The
O-ring is in place.
Yes, that's what I meant by gasket. Thank you, honey. How many of you watched Fred Flintstone cartoons when you were a kid? Or maybe you still do. At the end of, or at the introduction of Fred Flintstone, he's running his shovel, which is a large dinosaur, and the 5 o'clock whistle blows, and Fred jumps on out of the back of the basket on the back of the dinosaur, slides down the tail, lands in his car, or close to his car, and takes off. Folks, we're about to take off for the day. It's 5 o'clock, and I'm going to put these couple bolts in. We're going to pull this up, we're going to lift it, I'll stick my head in there. Make sure that O-ring, whoop, that's why we do this, that O-ring had moved. Back off. So we took a little break, and I went and got a piece of all thread I had on stock here, and I cut 2 6-inch pieces, cleaned up the ends. They're not cleaned up perfect, but what we're going to do now is we're going to screw them in, just a couple threads so that we can easily guide that head down, go straight down, put the bolts in, and not worry about disturbing this O-ring. I'm going to have to take a little pointy file and clean up those threads at that end. But these are wonderful tool if you don't already have some. You can either take long head bolts or long bolts of any kind or all thread, and I would recommend having at least a couple of each side. I got 3/8. These will go back in the toolbox. Evidently my 1/2-inch ones wandered off somewhere. You never know where they end up at. Our O-rings in place that is, makes the metal to metal seal perfect. During our break, a little bit more of the water or oil that was on the cylinder wall accumulated on the side, and we actually want to have it fairly dry for storage, because we don't, remember, when this turns over, we don't want any of the oil coming up and getting on the gasket. As far as these guide bolts go, they can work much better if you use an actual head bolt. I had some 350 head bolts that I ground the heads off of, and they worked very well, but they either walked off or I left them on a job site somewhere. But this works just as well. Nah, this works almost as well. These threads will sometimes make it a little bit stubborn to slip down over. Once again, we have our head indexed. We have our cylinder indexed, and we have our base indexed. And we did that because not all these heads will fit on. See, if this was a smooth bolt with a shoulder, I wouldn't have done that. And the O-ring's in place. And I am 100% confident that that O-ring didn't move. How does the camera wife feel about that O-ring?
Oh, it looked good.
Good.
It had not moved at all.
Excellent. That's why I keep her, folks.
Oh, look, you're going to use a ratchet.
Oh, they're a speed saver. They're
Really?
a time saver. Folks, let me talk about my sales business philosophy. If I come to you and suggest you buy a tool or a piece of equipment, and it's because it will either save you time or make you money. If it doesn't do one of those two things, I don't want to sell it to you. I will sell it to you because there's a lot of tools in this garage that I didn't need that I happen to have. And they weren't necessarily things I bought because I needed, I bought because I wanted. This gear wrench set we're using right now is one of them. I have quite a few sets of 3/8 drive socket and ratchet sets, but I really like this one, so I'm putting these in my own toolbox now. They're gear wrench 80550 3/8 drive set. I think it's a 57-piece set. Val, do you want to take a picture? You want to walk over there and shoot that?
Will.
Let me set that over there. And that's all 57 pieces right there.
Well, except for that socket that's there beside you.
That's from this case that I have. That's a 57-piece set. Unfortunately, by the time this goes to air, I'll probably be out of the special price ones, but we just got pricing on the promo on these today, and we are going to be selling these, and we're actually going to beat Amazon's price on this particular kit until I'm out of stock. Now, I only had 70 available to me, and I couldn't afford to buy 70 sets to put on the shelf. I don't have that much working capital, but I did buy as many as I could afford, and they will be on the website, thecompressorguru.com. So even if these aren't there, there's liable to be another good deal there for you. Anyway, let's get back to work, Val. So this is a gear wrench, torque wrench, 1/2-inch drive. And I got an SK socket on it because I haven't invested in the gear wrench 1/2-inch drive set for myself yet, because I don't have unlimited funds, and I got quite a few sets of 1/2-inch drive. But the, oh, by the way, one thing I really like about that 3/8 set is I take that out when I go do service calls in the field, and I don't have to carry a big old toolbox just to carry my sockets. I just grab that slim black case, and I got most sockets I need, and it has 2 latches. It's very easy to carry, has everything I need as far as the 3/8 drive sockets go, and that's one of the reasons I bought it, even though I didn't need it.
Show us how that wrench works.
Oh, this is a locking ring. When you turn it clockwise, looking at the bottom, it unlocks and you can move it. When you turn it back, it locks it and your setting is locked into place. Off camera, I looked up the torque specs for the 3/8 bolt in the middle and the 1/2-inch bolts on the outside. And the 3/8 bolt, the torque specification was 33 pound. So there's 25 pound. Okay. 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. We locked the lock ring. We're set at 33 pounds. And we put the 3/8 drive socket on it. And I already tightened this up, but let's just double check our torque. Do you hear the click? That is set at 33 pound.
Why did you do the center one first?
I did the center, very good question, Val, thank you. I did the center one first because there's a gasket that goes through the center, that this bolt hole goes through the center of that gasket. If we tighten the center one first, it squeezes that part of the gasket, and it is possible for that gasket to fail. We've seen that on many other compressors. That gasket will fail and this won't pump well. When we tighten that first, we compress that gasket in the center first. If we tighten these outside ones first and then tighten this, there's a slim possibility we might have a little bit of a bow in that plate and not be able to compress that gasket as well as needed be, and it would be a greater possibility of a failure in the future. Any of you old mechanics, you know, anytime you're torquing a head down on a engine, a V8 engine, there's a bolt torque pattern, and the torque patterns always start in the center and work their way out. This is much the same thing, but Ingersoll, it's 5 bolts, 1 in the center and 4 around the corners. So we don't have a recommended bolt pattern from Ingersoll. However, start in the center and work your way out. We take our 3/4, let's just start at 33 pounds, and then we'll go up to 75. That one clicked. Okay, we're gonna go up to 75 pound. I already broke the lock ring loose, and we get 0 on the 70. There's 0 on the 70, and we add 5 pounds, and that's 6 pound. That's the final torque for the outside bolts.
Peace in my home, the joy you can touch. I got some Christian biker friends that listen to the uptown strut.
So, with a shorty ratchet that came with the kit, with a shorty ratchet, I'm going to tighten that. This is a 1/4 inch grade 8 bolt into a steel plate that is just as hard can be. Okay. Wait a minute, one more time. Let me hear it. Let me hear it. There we go. That's tight. Okay, I'm going to go just a little bit around these, part way, part way, part way. We're trying to compress this gasket evenly as we go down. Now, the metal on metal that the O-ring separates, I must have been against something on that because I was surprised. There we go. And yes, I go over them several times. Make sure we get our ultimate torque. Don't just go around them once.
Is this because Bud is paranoid?
That's paranoid.
Okay.
And paranoid people live longer. Maybe I'm paranoid because somebody's out to get me. This will be in the
Maybe it's
blooper
the
reel.
camera woman.
Okay, just for grins and giggles. Oh, that tightened up, that loosened up. That center section loosened up. I'm going to loosen them again. I got several turns on that center bolt.
Smiling long, curly hair, a bottle in one hand and feels and thrills to share. Temptation has come, but my mind's made up. I already fought the battle way before the sun came up.
I would much rather tear this apart, fix it, make it right here. This was as simple as loosening the bolts and retorquing them a couple times to make sure our gasket should be secure. I'd rather do it here than have it out in the field in 2 months and it fail, and then the customer's mad, the customer has downtime, and I look like I didn't do it right. I did this right. I did it twice to make sure I did it right. Anyway, let's move on.
You know, life life's got a price tag I could never repay. It cost him all he had, that's why I got it made. I surrender all to Jesus every day. I'm having a ball playing the blues, giving my life away.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Compressor Guru. Please hit like and subscribe and use the notify bell so you will know when the next new episode is released from The Compressor Guru. God bless you and have a great day.